Hello, everybody. Father Scott Vanderveer here with another installment in our series on the season of creation, dedicated to the memory of our late Holy Father, Pope Francis, who was a true leader in helping us understand the connection of our spirituality to the natural environment. And as I record this, we actually are living without a pope currently. We have a situation that is called sede vacantes in Latin, meaning empty seat, empty see of Peter. And so now we're waiting for the 267th pope to be named after a conclave. As you're watching this, you may already know who the next pope is, but at the time of recording, I don't. And I think it's important for us to recognize how big the mysteries of the universe are. We think the mystery of who's going to be the next pope is a big mystery. Far from it. Those are human and earthly things, though they have a divine component. But when we look at the cosmos, if we consider the vastness of God's creation, we're talking on a whole different level. We're not dealing with human earthly mysteries that are touched by the divinity of God, which touches everything. We're talking about a vastness that boggles the human mind. And it creates an inability for us to understand in any way what it is that God is doing, because the scale is so far beyond what a human mind can understand. Sometimes that can make us feel so small we want to reassert control. And that then becomes spiritual work for us to do. NASA provides some of the best ways for us to grow in our spirituality, to grow in our understanding of the vastness of God. NASA provides that for us with images from the Webb telescope and the Hubble telescope before that, with scenes from the Voyager, which was sent into space in 1977 and has brilliantly captured our solar system and continues almost 50 years later to be beaming back little tiny electronic signals letting us know it's still out there. It contains a message for any other life that God has created in the universe, letting them know that we are a people who believe in God's goodness and who are humbled by the vastness of what we don't yet know. That was done back when Jimmy Carter was the president of the United States, and I was a 2-year-old child. So that alone creates within us this feeling of, wow. The Vatican is known for being in the forefront of celestial and cosmic science, because that has always been a part of the Catholic worldview, that we must have an understanding of the natural world in order to understand what God is up to. And that has led to lots of different chapters of Catholic history, including the chapter with Galileo, which is controversial because it took the church a long time to accept his sun-centered solar system model rather than the earth-centered one that had always reigned before that. But although it has taken the church some time at times to get there, the church always endeavors to get there. That's kind of the spiritual impulse. We want to understand. And that's why one of the great observatories in the world is in the Vatican. And one of the most outspoken scientists working there is Brother Guy Consolmagno, who's an American Jesuit who works in that laboratory. And what they learn there at the observatory that involves looking at the universe and then trying to draw some scientific conclusions based on that is that he says it like this: truth is like an island. Truth is like an island. The more we know, the bigger the island is. But the bigger the island of our knowing is, the greater the amount of shoreline there is that touches the ocean of what we don't know. Isn't that an amazing image to work with? Sit with that for a second. The more we know, the bigger the island of knowledge we have. The bigger the island of knowledge, the more shoreline that touches what we don't know is. So now that we know what makes up part of 5% of the universe, we now have to confront that 95% of the universe is made of dark matter that we know nothing about. We don't even know all about the 5% that we can perceive, but we know nothing about the 95% that we can't perceive, that is completely beyond us. Whoa, what a cause for humility. Doesn't it just stagger you to think about that for a moment? It's unbelievable. So, as you can hear, there is so much for us to ponder as we think about what we don't know in the universe. We don't know if there is life out there. Sometimes it has threatened people to think that life could be out there because that has caused us to sometimes think, what if they're hostile to us? What if they're evil? But of course, Christians aren't able to really believe that because we believe in one God. We believe that there is one God of the universe. And so there is no rival God making evil people in the image and likeness of an evil God. There's only the one God who makes all creation in God's image and likeness. So there would be no cause for us to assume that there is a rival group of humanoids out there that would be evil. Our belief in monotheism prohibits us from going down that road. If there are other humans out there, if there is other life, it is worth pondering. And it is important for us to use the hunger that's within us, the desire in our souls to reach out, just as God desires to reach out, which is why God created the universe in the first place when God didn't have to, and why God continues to reach out to us, first through creation, then through the life of Jesus, God's unique Son who came to the world, who died and was raised and now lives in glory, and whose teachings continue to guide us. We know that God is alive in the universe today as well. It's why there's that tremendous slogan that's used by the United Church of Christ that says, don't put a period where God has put a comma. God is still speaking. God didn't stop speaking when Jesus ascended to heaven or when the last apostle died. God is speaking, 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 speaking. I was talking with a woman recently who was telling me that her husband in his mid-60s is dying of cancer, and she's terrified to lose him. She said the thing that she dreads the most, besides the feeling of loneliness, is the sadness and the silence that will follow his passing. She said, I am so worried about waking up and having utter silence in the house we've shared. And then she said this, but one day I was looking out at the backyard and I saw a beautiful morning foggy mist that God had placed there. And I suddenly remembered God's ways are so high above my ways. God's thoughts are so high above my thoughts. God's ways are so high above my ways. And I realized that if I am perceiving silence, it might be that I'm not listening hard enough. She said, if I listen closely, there will never be silence because God has not stopped speaking. God is always speaking. So she said, when I am worried that I'm surrounded by silence, I will be able to remember that God is still speaking. There's a lot to ponder there. And there's a lot of love and excitement that can fill our hearts when we realize just how active God is in the universe that God has given us to live in. So as we continue this series, let us be in awe and wonder, not only of all that we now know and how big the island of our knowledge is, but also how much shoreline there is of that island and how much it touches the ocean of what we do not know. What a blessing for us to get to ponder all of these things with so much love and life and faith. May God bless each and every one of you now and always. And may God bless all that lives and moves in our cosmos.